Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 255 of Tech It Out. You doing well? Drop me a line on social media to let me know. I love hearing from Tech It Out listeners from across the country. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. It's Mark Saltzman, Mark with a C, SaltzMan. On most of those platforms, I write a tech tip of the day. I link to articles that I write, my videos, and radio and podcast interviews. There's contests and a lot more, even bad dad jokes. Hey, we have a great Tech It Out plan for you this hour. If you love to read, like I do, you're going to love our first interview. It's about an app called Bookship. After that, Visa chats with us about how to protect yourself while shopping online or at retail. And finally, what to look for in a business-grade PC when we talk with Intel. All of this and more on an all-new Tech It Out, powered by ASUS, which I'll tell you more about shortly. And speaking of PCs, but let's officially kick off the show with our first interview. If you're like me, when you read a good book, you're compelled to tell everyone about it. And so I was intrigued when I heard about Bookship. It's a social reading app that lets people share their reading experiences. I invited Mark Watkins onto the show, Bookship's founder, for an interview about what Bookship is all about and how it works. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for your time.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
You're in beautiful Hawaii, I understand.
I am. It's hard to complain.
Born and raised?
No, actually, my wife was born and raised in Hawaii. Nice. So I made the sacrifice to come here for my wife.
Little violins there. Well, thanks for chatting with us today. So before we talk about Bookship, how would you say tech enhances the experience for book lovers? My wife's old-fashioned. She likes a paper book. I love reading on a tablet where I can enlarge the font, double tap on a word to get a dictionary definition. So I welcome the tech. What's your take on this?
Yeah, well, books are they're the original technology. People have been reading books for thousands of years for entertainment, for inspiration, for education. But now you can walk on a plane with a complete library of books. It's searchable. You can listen to it. I mean, there's really never been a better time to be a reader. And, we've got all these search engines that help us find all these great content about the books, author interviews and all this kind of thing. But, the challenge is we live in this age of distraction, right? It's YouTube and Netflix and TikTok and video games and Instagram. And there's just so many ways to spend your time. But I'm like you. When I read a great book, I want to tell people about it. And we really believe books have the potential to change people's lives. And so that's our mission, is just to get more people reading.
Yeah, love it. And opposed to watching a TV show or a movie, which I also enjoy, you're spoon-fed everything though, right? The way the characters look, what that scene looks like, what the sounds are like of a nearby crashing ocean. But when you're reading a book, it's so much more intimate because your mind is conjuring up that scene. It's why they say the movie is never as good as the book, because it's so personal to you. All right. So with that in mind, Mark, talk to us about Bookship. What's it all about?
Yeah, so Bookship is a social reading app. Like you said, people have always wanted to talk about books, but it's always been, hey, I just read this book. You should try it. It's very kind of transactional. With Bookship, it's essentially a virtual book club. You pick a book, you invite some friends or family, and you post comments while you're actually reading. It might be an informal group. It might be, your friends or family, or it might be an organized book club. But all this is happening while you're actually reading. When those insights come, when you have that, oh, I can't believe that just happened moment, you can talk about it right there and then.
Without spoiling it for other people, though.
Without spoiling it for people if you don't want to. There's even a part of the app called the Cafe that you can meet people from around the world who want to read the same book as you. So you can read books and discuss them with random strangers if that's what you want to do. There's a lot of data out there, studies that say that social isolation is bad for you. It's not only bad for you mentally, but it's bad for you physically. There are all these things that happen if you're isolated. And especially during the COVID era, people were really struggling with that. Book clubs couldn't meet, people were shut in. And like you said, books have always been social. And so Bookship gives you a way to stay in touch with your friends, your family, using technology, but really centered on books. And, we call it Bookship because it's about relationships, friendships. That's why we call it Bookship.
So can you walk us through then how it works? Is it an app or a website or both?
Yes, it is both. I like the app because, we tend to always have our phones with us. And so whenever, you're sitting in the dentist's office reading a little bit before your appointment, you can do things right there and then. The app also makes use of some of the things on the phone, like the camera, your contact list. So the phone and the app are very convenient, but there's a website. If you want the big screen experience, you can have that too. You can do both. So the way it works is if you have a book in mind, you just search for the book, type in the name, and off you go. Or you can use our book browser, which will help you get inspiration if you need a little jump start. The app will send invites to your friends. It can be through emails or text messages. It's totally up to you. Your friends get invited, and when they join, they just get joined into a chat room that's specific to the book you're reading and the people that you're with. It's private unless you decide to make it public, which you can do, but it's all private. And while you're reading, if you make comments or observations, your friends get notified. And it's not unlike a Facebook group, but it's private and very focused on the book. So it's just basically, to begin with, the basic feature is this chat environment where you can talk about the book you're reading while you're actually reading it.
Yeah, I like how you said it's like a virtual book club. Can you tell us about the virtual highlighter feature?
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my favorite features. So I, like your wife, love to read physical books. I do read ebooks for certain kinds of things, but I love physical books. I love the touch. I love the smell. I love all of it. But if you want to share a quote from a physical book, it's kind of a pain. You got to type the whole thing in. If you're on the Kindle, you just highlight the text and you can share it right away. So what the virtual highlighter does is it brings that to physical books. So you just point your camera at the page, you take a picture, it sucks the text right off the page and into the app where you can post it, share it with people. And so it's just an easy way to make your physical book into a digital asset that you can make use of. It's almost like a virtual bookmarker as well. You can remember all these pages that catch your attention.
We're chatting with Mark Watkins. He's the founder of Bookship. This is an app and a website for book lovers to share their experiences with friends or strangers, if you like. Kind of like a virtual book club, but with several other features. And one of them is video chatting.
Yes. So Bookship it's free, it's secure, it's private, it's unlimited, and best of all, it's one button video chat. I think we've all had those experiences where we get into a Zoom meeting and the invite didn't work, or the meeting ran into time limits, or you spent the first 15 minutes trying to get all the Zoom stuff working.
Yeah.
Bookship, it already knows your group. It knows all the people. And so you hit the video icon and that's all there is to it. You tap that button and you're into a video chat. Everybody else will get notified on their phones or on their computers. They just tap that notification and they'll be joined in. So it's super simple. There's no time limits and you can have the video chat right there in the app with your group. It's also kind of fun, if you like doing that random stranger thing, you can use this video chat button and it's safe. There's no contact information is disclosed in the app. You're just connected to these people in the app. So you can video chat with them and you don't really have to worry about disclosing information that you wouldn't want to. So it's kind of if you want a little walk on the book wild side, so to speak, you can do that.
Before we wrap up and talk costs, tell us about the Meet the Author program.
Yeah, it's a well-kept secret that a lot of authors are more than happy to meet with book clubs. A lot of people don't know it. I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, and I struck up a random conversation with one of my favorite authors, and they're very accessible. I think of them as celebrities, but they're often very accessible, but people don't know it. And so what we've done is created this Meet the Author program. We've gone out and sort of pre-connected with authors, and we continue to do this all the time, and basically confirm that they're willing to meet. And then we build a directory of those authors and books in the app. So you can kind of browse through a section of the app of here are all the authors that are willing to meet with your group. And, we're happy to connect with other authors who aren't in the program. So, by the way, if you're an author and you're listening and you want in, please drop me a note. But it's very special, right? There's nothing like actually meeting the author of a book that you really love. It's a very special experience.
Could it just be like a one-time thing where, say, a big-name author who's really busy just says, I'll chat for half an hour with Bookship members, on this given date?
It works exactly like that. And, that's where that video chat thing comes in really handy. The author can just kind of drop in once. A lot of them will actually travel to meet with you in person, but it's so time consuming, all that. And now everybody's really kind of prepared for virtual meetings. And so, that's really the simplest way is to just do a one-time virtual meeting with the group. And it's, the author's there for, 20 or 30 minutes and in and out.
Have you had any big names?
We have a few big names in the program. There are a bunch of USA Today bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers. We've got National Book Award winners. Let's see. Richard K. Morgan, who wrote the book Altered Carbon that the Netflix series is based on, is in the program. Elliot Pepper, another science fiction writer. Erica Bauermeister, who one of her books was chosen for Reese's Witherspoon's book club. So there are a bunch of authors, a lot of different genres. And it's kind of a well-kept secret that these authors will make themselves available. I mean, the bigger they are, the harder it is to get their attention.
Sure, of course. Well, I put you on the spot, but those are some great names. Thanks for that. So let's wrap up on costs. I do understand that there is a premium option.
Yeah, so the basic app is free for groups of less than 10 people. So if you want to just read with a couple of friends or your family, The app's completely free. I should say, whether the app is free or paid, we don't run any advertising. We don't sell any personal information. I mean, when it comes to privacy, we believe in the golden rule. So we don't do any of that. The basic app is free, and that's kind of our way of trying to stimulate reading. For committed users or people who want large groups, we offer this Bookship Premium. In the US, it's $2.99 a month. And for that, you get the ability to run large groups, so 10 or more people. You also get personalized book recommendations once a week. So we learn your tastes and we tell you about books we think you'll like. And lastly, you get access to something called book briefings. So any premium user, when they read a book, we create kind of it's almost like a little mini course. We give you all this content, author interviews, book reviews, reading guides, and it's just a way to get more out of your reading. So it's really great for people who are super passionate about reading, want to get the absolute most out of the books they're reading. And you can start and stop anytime. You can pay for a month and stop if you pick it up in 6 months, so completely flexible. The last thing I would say is we are big believers in literacy. We donate 10% of our revenue to literacy nonprofits. And so, a portion of your $2.99 a month is helping people get books, learn to read, become literate. Super important.
Awesome. All right, Mark, and what's the best website to learn more, or do you just recommend typing the word Bookship at your favorite app store?
Simplest thing to do is to go to bookshipapp.com.
Okay.
Bookship, spelled like it sounds, and app, or you can Google it or find it in your favorite app store. It's iOS, Android, and the web.
Mark, thank you again. Mark Watkins has been our guest. Great to chat with you. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Mark. Really fun.
When we return on Tech It Out, we chat with a VP at Visa about staying safe while shopping online or at retail. We'll be right back.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out, everyone. This weekly show is powered by ASUS for those in search of incredible. ASUS, or you may pronounce it ASUS, creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. And that includes its line of award-winning laptops and desktops, monitors, keyboards, mice. They've got mobile tech like smartphones, smartwatches, tablets, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. When you use your credit card to buy something at retail or online, it happens instantly, right? But there's a lot going on behind the scenes to protect you and the merchant that you're interacting with as well from fraudulent activity. Visa, in particular, has invested several $1 billion over the past 5 years to support Visa's brand promise to protect the financial information of both individuals and businesses. We're going to hear more about it now with Michael Jabbara. He's Vice President at Visa and Global Head of Fraud Services. Hi, Michael. Good to chat with you again.
Hey, Mark. Likewise.
Yeah, I think we spoke last in April. Time flies, but thanks again for joining us. Okay, so it seems like the schemes that fraudsters are using to swindle consumers and steal information are becoming more sophisticated. What are some of the latest methods cybercriminals are using?
Absolutely, Mark. So I thought maybe what would be helpful is if I walk you through kind of a composite event of a time that we've observed threat actors gaining illicit access to data systems and using that access to monetize in illicit ways. And afterwards, we can kind of talk about some of the points of vulnerability that they've exploited accordingly.
Sounds good.
So maybe what I'll do is actually I'll just kind of drop you in the middle of an event that we deal with somewhat frequently here on the Visa side. So it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday. Myself and the team get a notice to all jump in on a call because there is some anomalous activity that we're seeing from one of our clients. And what we start to see is that there's a lot of ATM withdrawals that are happening from one specific bank. And we do a quick analysis. And what we see is that this is the only bank that's experiencing this spike. It's an unusual time. And the cards that are being used to withdraw relatively large amounts of cash don't have previous history of large ATM withdrawals. And so we quickly realize there's something illicit going on. We reach out to the bank. We let them know about the activity. We don't hear from them. And what's going on is that for every minute that this is happening, there's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that is walking out the proverbial door.
Yeah.
And so we go ahead and we intercede on behalf of the client. We shut down the ATM access. And then a few hours later, we hear back from the bank and realize that those transactions were in fact fraudulent.
Sure.
That's kind of the real-time event that's happening right now. And whenever you're dealing with a large-scale attack or a data breach, there's kind of like two times that you're dealing. There's the just-in-time, you're making kind of very impactful decisions in real time with somewhat limited data. And then you have, after you kind of stabilize the situation, you can kind of go back and kind of analyze the situation and figure out whether the techniques, tactics, and procedures, the TTPs that were used by the fraudsters to carry out the attack.
That's so interesting. And I'm assuming it's the artificial intelligence on Visa's end, the AI, that detected that anomaly, like you said, the fact that it's one ATM, the time of day perhaps plays a role. This is unusual behavior. So really, really interesting.
Yeah, that is a part of the AI/ML.
Machine learning.
Yes, exactly. Machine learning to let us know kind of whenever anomalous activity is happening, but that's also married by our people expertise who can kind of look at the alerts and distinguish the signal from the noise. This is legitimate anomalous activity versus this is fraudulent anomalous activity.
Got it.
Kind of the second part of it is taking a step back and figuring out, well, how did this attack happen? How do we get into the mind of the criminal, if you will, and figure out where this all started? And you may be surprised to hear that it all started on LinkedIn. Yeah. So what had happened was that an employee of this bank was solicited for a potential job opportunity by a recruiter. They engaged in certain conversations. It turned out the opportunity was interesting to the employee. And so he was, or she was, sent a link to click on to submit their application. Of course, unbeknownst to the employee at the time was that the recruiter they were speaking with was actually a fake profile that was set up by the threat actor. And the link that they had clicked on actually downloaded a set of malware onto their work laptop. That was the first step of compromising the network.
Wow. Malware, of course, is short for malicious software, and it sounds like there are attacks from all angles. It's a never-ending sort of cat and mouse game. With that in mind, then, Michael, could you take us inside the mind of a fraudster? What would signal, let's say, an easy or high reward target?
Essentially, what they're looking for is a way to monetize access and exploit vulnerabilities in an entity's employee base, network infrastructure, business processes for illicit gain. So, specific scenario they were able to do is carry out this social engineering attack and figure out what type of job would this specific employee click to. And they structured it in a way that it was really appealing to them. And that's how they gained that kind of that first foothold into the network. But that's not enough. So you're now into this network. What they ended up doing is actually monitoring the network for a few weeks to essentially move laterally, because you may get access to a corporate environment, but what we really are looking for is access to the financial systems environment. And so they were able to do that. They were able to find a user that had administrative privileges. They were then able to take over that user profile. And what they did is lower the transaction controls that they had on certain ATM accounts. That was able then to be deployed in that on-the-ground attack that we ended up seeing across our network and stopping.
Wow, sounds so coordinated. We're going to talk more with Michael Jabbara from Visa when we return. Stay with us.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out, everyone. We're chatting with Michael Jabbara. He's Vice President at Visa and Global Head of Fraud Services. Before the break, he gave us an example of a recent attack involving ATMs and breaking into a company's network by duping an employee into thinking they were applying for a job. They waited for a while once they were in and then moved laterally to go after the money. It sounds so coordinated, sophisticated once they're in, because social engineering is when the employee makes a mistake. It's a human error. Then once they're in the system, you said they can move laterally. That's just creepy.
Oh, correct. And it's even more impressive because, we're talking about software. We're talking about kind of remote access to a system, but there is is this in-person, on-the-ground element to it, which are these money mules that were deployed to take the cash out of the ATM. So there were over 100 individuals who got access to counterfeit cards with the accounts who were compromised when the initial network intrusion had happened, with very specific instructions on when to go, what was the amount to withdraw, how many withdrawals you could do, because they're trying to stay under the radar and carry that out. And so when I was talking about earlier, the speed by which we need to identify, assess, and action these alerts has to be really significant is because, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars are being taken out at a time. So there's just massive amounts of coordination, really sophisticated insight into kind of human psychology and what are the ways that you could kind of exploit those vulnerabilities. And then the tools that you're using, the types of malware that they're using, it could vary in sophistication. It could be something as simple as what you would buy off of a dark website, or as kind of complex as something that you would code specifically for the environment that you're attacking.
Yeah. While consumers have peace of mind knowing that Visa is on the offensive, what are some things that we can do as shoppers, retail and online, to better protect our data and our devices?
Absolutely. I think the biggest advice is to use your common sense. Be very wary of the types of links that you're clicking. Be wary of offers that sound to be too good to be true, offers that have a sense of urgency in them. Act now or you're going to miss out. That usually is a big red flag. Make sure that you've set up your two-factor authentication so that even if your password gets compromised, you still have this other line of defense with the second factor to authenticate yourself when you're logging into your accounts.
Of course, multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication is when you not only need your password to access something online, like a shopping site, but you also get a one-time code sent to your mobile device in many instances. A second way to verify that it is you. Multi-factor authentication combines something you know, which is your password, with something you have, like your device, a mobile phone.
No, absolutely. That's exactly right. Make sure that the websites where you're shopping, kind of check the URL. It should say HTTPS. The S at the end of that HTTP confirms that the site has a secure connection and is protecting your payment data accordingly. And just make sure that you're up to speed on all the software patches and security versions in your mobile device and laptops that you're using for these digital interactions.
All great advice. Businesses are also prime targets for cyber attacks. What are some tips for those listening who do run a business, large or small, to improve their security posture?
Absolutely. I think it's very similar in the sense that you need to train your frontline employees to be very security aware in terms of where they're browsing, links they're clicking on, who they're sharing sensitive information with. Make sure that you have proper investments in security technologies, whether that's tokenization, which essentially removes sensitive payment data so that even if your environment gets compromised, the information is useless to fraudsters. Investing in network segmentation. So we talked about the example, they got access to the corporate environment and then they moved laterally. By keeping these different parts of your environment separate from one another, a breach in one end does not necessarily mean it would be catastrophic for your whole business. And that's a key part. Continuing to be up to date on some of the latest vulnerabilities that are being exploited, Log4j, being a really good example of that, and patching against those vulnerabilities so that they're not ending up being the entryway for a threat actor. And again, just going to be really investing in education and awareness is really the key step here.
All great advice, Michael. And before we wrap up, you've touched on this a little bit earlier, but with so many threats out there, how does Visa stay ahead of them all and protect shoppers, businesses, and really the global engine of commerce itself?
Well, absolutely. I mean, a big part of it is really around investing deeply in our intelligence capabilities, being aware of the latest and greatest innovative fraud schemes that threat actors are carrying out there and putting in mitigation and prevention methods in place. It's continuing to invest in our technology. We talked about the AI and machine learning previously. That's really the way that we can identify that fraudulent needle in the haystack of legitimate transactions across our network, and continue continuing to really attract and retain the brightest talent when it comes to fraud and cybersecurity so that we can deploy our expertise at scale on behalf of our clients and cardholders.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And is there a call to action, if you will, a great website to recommend for those who want to learn more about Visa and their efforts in the security and privacy space?
Absolutely. You can learn more about Visa security at visa.com/security.
All right, visa.com/security. Michael Jabbara has been our guest. Thanks for your time and your insight. I've always enjoyed our chats.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
In the event of a cyber attack, it's always handy to have backups, as Michael said, even on the consumer level. That's why on this program, I always recommend external drives, not just trusting your content in the cloud, but having something offline and local as well. I always recommend a trusted name in external hard drives or solid state drives, SSDs. And for me, that's Western Digital, and they've got different brands under that banner like WD, SanDisk, even has backup solutions for iPhone and iPad that plug in to the device through the Lightning port. And there's a wireless version of that. That's called the iExpand drive. So not only is it a Qi compatible charger where you lay your iPhone down on top to charge up, but it also wirelessly backs up your photos and videos, contacts, and more onto the storage that's inside of that mat, that charging mat. How cool is that? That's part of the iExpand family, which you can learn more about at sandisk.com. And then for long-term storage, I'm a digital pack rat. I download a lot of stuff. I always get those like 8 or 10 terabyte WD drives that are always connected to my computers, and I make backups all the time. And then copies of those backups, I keep them in different places, like a safety deposit box in the event of a fire or something, heaven forbid. But you know what I mean? Always better to err on the side of cautions. My twins are now 20. I've got an 18-year-old, and I've got a lifetime of photos and videos. So I back up to the cloud as well as locally. All right, I think you get the point. Speaking of PCs, when we return on Tech It Out, we're going to chat with Intel about its vPro platform for IT departments so they can be the IT hero within the organization, and how there are Intel EVO branded vPro computers that give you the design and long battery life, instant startup times, and other bells and whistles. So stay with us. More Tech It Out coming right up after this.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Tech It Out, hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. For the past 2 months, we've been learning all about the Intel vPro platform for businesses, big and small, and how IT professionals can become the IT hero of their organization with these hand-picked Intel-powered PCs. We've chatted about Intel vPro Enterprise, Intel vPro Essentials, the security benefits, remote management features, and to wrap up our discussion today about Intel EVO, I'm thrilled to be joined on the line by Asma Aziz. She's marketing director for the Americas at Intel. Welcome back to the show, Asma.
Hey, Mark. Glad to be here today.
Yeah, great to chat with you again. Before we talk about Intel EVO, why don't we start with a quick overview of Intel vPro?
Sure, Mark. So the Intel vPro platform really is built for businesses. I know you guys have been talking about it a lot in detail in the last couple of months. So when you really see a device with an Intel vPro badge or sticker, as we commonly call it, you can expect the PC really to have the right ingredients which meet the needs of today's businesses. And what does the platform actually deliver? It delivers strong performance and productivity because you know that it uses the latest Intel Core processors. It is, of course, very stable, which is important for business users. It's got built-in security features, which is hardware-based built-in security, which means that you have protection against malware attacks. Also, it's got remote manageability. That means that the IT teams could get access to PCs, do remote software updates, remote troubleshooting. And I think these last two features, Mark, are super important for today's businesses, particularly their IT teams.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, post-pandemic, working at home or a hybrid approach is certainly the way it is today. So you need IT professionals to be able to remotely access an employee's PC wherever they may be and make sure that everything's up to date and secure. Even more relevant and important today, I would agree with you, Asma. Now, I've talked about Intel EVO in the past when it comes to consumer PCs, but I understand that there are some Intel vPro machines that are also Intel EVO certified. Can you talk to us about what Intel EVO is all about?
For sure, Mark. So this was a multi-year initiative from Intel where we spent a lot of time studying our consumers and what they really need from a PC. You know that the lifestyle is constantly changing. Most of us are becoming road warriors. We are on the go and we want our PCs to really seamlessly fit this lifestyle change. So we at Intel, we co-engineered these premium line of laptops, as we call them, in collaboration with some of the largest manufacturers across the world, our OEM partners, and this exciting EVO laptops were born. And what does EVO do? So it really helps users get that right experience. It has seamless connectivity, Wi-Fi capabilities built in, and all of those features that, are important to the user.
All right, thanks for that. So whether you buy a Dell, an HP, Lenovo, LG, ASUS, and so on, if it has an Intel EVO badge or sticker on the laptop, for example, then that ticks all the boxes that it's going to have instant startup times, long battery life, fast performance, fast Wi-Fi, like Wi-Fi 6, other connectivity options like Thunderbolt or USB-C. So it meets all the stringent criteria that Intel sets out, then it earns that sticker. So it's kind of like the best of the best.
Absolutely.
All right. So it sounds like there's Intel EVO and then there's vPro, which are the business grade or business class computers. They've come together and they deliver a, let's call it, best of both worlds experience. Can you talk about that integration a little bit more?
Absolutely. One way to look at it, vPro is built for businesses. For example, it offers Intel Hardware Shield, which really provides system level protection and security features. It also has Intel Active Management Technology or Intel AMT, which is really a cloud-based PC fleet management or remote manageability features. EVO focuses on user experience. When we combine both vPro and EVO platform together, we create these class of devices that not only provide us business class performance, comprehensive security features, but it's also stylish and sleek designs, really all the bells and whistles together.
We are chatting with Asma Aziz, Marketing Director for the Americas at Intel Corporation. We're chatting about the fusion, if you will, of Intel vPro for businesses and Intel EVO, which is a slew of other features to give you a best-in-class experience. So with that in mind, let's unpack these EVO standards or features, if you will.
Definitely, Mark. So Intel has developed, like I said, set of specifications for things such as size, weight, responsiveness, so that, like you said, irrespective of whichever brand of laptops or the PCs you buy, so long that it has an EVO badge or a sticker there, you could be rest assured that it is coming with all the bells and whistles and has all the right feature set which is needed for today's lifestyle and today's consumer. And some of the features which are very, very important in EVO are consistent responsiveness, longer battery lives, 9 hours and above, Mark, and that's in real life workloads. I'm not talking about, something that we do in a lab under some, special conditions.
Right.
Yeah.
Real world.
Yeah. So in the real world, full HD display, all the works, you could get 9 hours plus of battery life. With just a 30-minute charge, you could get easily more than 4 hours of battery, again, in the real world workloads. Great. It's also got something very important, instant wake. So it wakes up in less than 1 second. You remember, Mark, back in the day, we would turn on our laptops. You could easily go make your coffee and that your laptop or the PC was still gone at those days. It's almost like that seamless experience. You know how you wake up and you touch your cell phone and it comes to life? This is what the EVO machines do. That's instant wake, which is also important. And again, then the responsiveness, connectivity are important features like we spoke about because of the Intel Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and Thunderbolt. It allows your best-in-class Wi-Fi experience and connectivity, which is obviously super important for these devices. So these are, I think, some of the features which make these devices not only a premium experience, but it's an exceptional experience altogether for the user.
We'll continue chatting with Intel when we return on Tech It Out.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
I know a lot of Tech It Out listeners work in IT, and so we are chatting with Intel We've got on the line Asma Aziz. She's Marketing Director for the Americas at Intel. We're talking about the Intel vPro platform for businesses and how Intel has also infused Intel EVO specs and design into these business-grade PCs that have security benefits and remote management features. So let's continue chatting. Speaking of connectivity and collaboration, we know that today's work reality includes video calling like we're doing right now and video collaboration. Does Intel EVO design consider this?
Absolutely. Intel EVO design, Mark, as we discussed before, looks at a slew of factors and slew of experiences. And of course, the collaboration is an important piece. It's got this built-in intelligent collaboration with, features like noise suppression, background blur, face framing, lightning correction, all of the things that, make you look your best and sound your best, when you're on apps like Teams, Zoom, on other collaborative applications. And I'd like to mention here, Mark, that with Intel EVO designs, your users can really expect up to 66% lower latency. Latency, as you know, means lag on real-time voice and video calls. That's super important. You remember, back in the day, sometimes you'd be talking and then there'll be a lag and then the other person would respond. And, that's not a great experience. But with all these specifications built into these platforms, all of these things are considered, and essentially the user gets the best-in-class experience.
Before we wrap up, Asma, who would you say benefits from Intel EVO PCs?
So I would say, Mark, Intel EVO specs are both for consumers, but they can also be used for commercial. So why am I saying this? The research tells us that consumers and corporate users have many of the same wants, right? So we want our devices to be thin and light so we can move around easily. That is something that both kind of users need. We want devices to be responsive. We want good audio video quality. We want absolutely great Wi-Fi connectivity. So these are some of the features both users want.
Right. And no trade-offs, right? You want all that power and long battery life, but you want a thin and light device as well. It's like we're not willing to trade anything.
Absolutely. And Intel EVO, of course, offers all of this. And then when you add the Intel vPro to that, you really get a business level performance for your PCs that meets the needs of today's businesses. And like I said, as well as the IT departments, because, having that highly functional PC does wonders for employees. We've seen that, when the employees get a good experience, they feel less frustration, they feel less downtime. That means that their productivity is increased. They can focus on the tasks that they need to perform, and they can enjoy that experience, which means that, the businesses is going to get more out of it. So I think it's a win-win all the way.
All right. As we wrap up, Asma, where can we learn more about Intel EVO and Intel vPro PCs?
Sure. The easiest way to learn more is by visiting intel.com/vPro.
All right. Intel.com/vPro. Asma, it's always great chatting with you, and I look forward to seeing you in person again sometime soon. Thanks so much for carving out some time to chat. All the best.
Thank you. All the best, Mark.
Speaking of Intel, I had a lot of fun shooting overnight at a Costco location last week to talk about what's new in laptops, thin and light designs, faster processors, better security, faster Wi-Fi, more connectivity ports, instant wake-up times, longer battery life, better graphic performance. And so Intel was on hand with a couple of devices for me to show. It was really a lot of fun. So if you shop at Costco, you'll see my smiling face on the TVs while you're shopping. My wife jokes around how she hates it because I'm like watching her shop. This week, I'm going to Washington, D.C. to shoot some videos with AARP. As you may or may not know, I write for AARP about tech topics that matter to seniors. And so we're going to be shooting some videos as well. One about smart TVs, another one about smart homes. We're going to look at activity trackers and smartwatches. So I'm looking forward to that. And as we wrap up another episode of Tech It Out, and speaking of computers, again, a big thank you to ASUS, the title sponsor on this program. ASUS creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. And that includes its line of award-winning laptops. There's a number of brands under the ASUS banner. In fact, there's the Zenbooks, which are cutting edge, super innovative. There's the VivoBooks, great all-around day-to-day PCs, Chromebooks, less expensive, ideal for students. Expert books, more of a business grade laptop. And Studio Books for content creators on the go. There's also ROG or Republic of Gamers branded laptops with desktop-like performance packed inside of a laptop. Very cool. asus.com/US/radio to learn more. That's asus.com/US/radio. Thanks again to my guests this hour, Intel, Visa, and Bookship. If you want to reach out on social media, my name is Mark Saltzman. Mark with a C, Saltzman with a Z. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Let me know if you have any tech questions, you have suggestions for upcoming guests or topics, or if you prefer to send me an email, my website is marksaltzman.com. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. A safe week ahead, and I look forward to catching up with you a week from now on Tech It Out. Bye-bye for now.